We have close to 200 electric bikes and scooters here at Rider Guide in every imaginable shape, size, weight, and performance level. So I think it's a pretty glowing endorsement when I say that if I had to choose just one of them to own and use on a daily basis for every situation, I'd probably choose this, the JackRabbit OG. This is one of the world's most portable e-bikes, and as far as I know, is the only e-bike that can fly. I mean, not literally, like on a plane. Still pretty cool though. So in this review, I'm going to put that to the test with a trip to Las Vegas. I'll show you what it's like to pack it up, get it on a plane, go through security with these batteries, and how it endures the abuse of the flight. We'll ride around the Las Vegas Strip, and along the way, I'll talk about the features and performance. I'll also go over the larger XG model and the difference between it and the OG. Sound like fun? Let's go. Now, JackRabbit describes their two models, the OG and the XG, as e-bikes because, well, that's what they look like the most, and it's a form that people are familiar with. But with no pedals or way to operate the motor other than the throttle, it's more of a seated scooter. However, JackRabbit calls them e-bikes, so that is the term I'll use for this video. If it wasn't obvious, this is a very, very small e-bike, like comically tiny. It weighs 24 pounds, has 20-inch wheels, a height of 39 inches, and a length of 4 feet. And for traveling, it can get even smaller. The process for breaking this bike down and packing it in a travel bag is pretty cool, so let me show you that. So the bike doesn't fold, but it has a few little tricks to get it as compact as possible and fit it in this gray bag right here. So I'll show you those. So the first thing you want to do is put the seat down as low as it goes, but you also want to spin it back the opposite direction. And then we're going to take the handlebars out. You just got a quick release clamp here and a little button that you press, and then you slide those out. And we're gonna take care of the handlebars in a second. It has a special bag for it, so I'm just gonna set those to the side for now. And then this has a cool trick where the wheel spins all the way around, and then hear that click? Now it's locked into place. Now the wheel won't rotate at all, so it's completely packed flat now. And then we're gonna wanna fold these pegs up here, and then obviously the kickstand. And then we're gonna get our handlebar bag here. And we're gonna put the side with the brake in to this bag here. Just slots in, you can see here, just slots in right there. So it packs against it nice and flat. Okay, so not the best job ever, but there is an official tutorial by JackRabbit that is more helpful than this, but I just wanted to show you how small it can get and then show you the process for getting in the bag here. Okay, it's a little bit of work, but it gets there, and this actually protects it really well. There's spots in the bag at any of like the pressure points, the spots that it might poke through or get damaged. They've got extra padding at those spots. It also comes with this shoulder strap here. So this is really nice for walking through the airport or taking it out to your car or whatever. And the bag is nice because not only is it great for the plane, but it's also great for sticking in your car or anything of that nature. It'll keep the tires from getting the trunk or whatever dirty. While it's packed, it's definitely a confusingly shaped piece of luggage, but it's not something that should raise any concerns with airlines. You have to make sure to remove the batteries from the bike. The lithium-ion batteries cannot be checked and placed under the plane. They need to go in your carry-on. Also, you can't take more than 2 of these batteries with you. I didn't have too much trouble checking in the bike. With Southwest, it's an extra $75 to check sports equipment like this, and be sure when they ask you what it is to just tell them it's a bike. I would suggest avoiding anything that implies it's an e-bike, as it could cause some headaches for you with the airline staff. However, the TSA themselves actually performed an inspection on this bike at the Oakland airport, and they cleared it to fly. So just calling it a plain bike is to make things easier with the airline staff, not to deceive or do anything illegal in any way. With the bike checked, I headed to security, which was the part I was most nervous about, as these batteries are over the normal regulation limit of 100 watt-hours. However, with airline approval, the FAA allows up to 2 battery packs under 150 watt-hours, and the guys at JackRabbit assured us that they had received the requisite approval for these battery packs. Despite that, my heart rate jumped a little when my bag with the battery packs slid over to the other side of the glass and had to be inspected. The TSA agent didn't say a single word to me as he swabbed them down and did whatever tests they run with their equipment. Then after about 5 minutes, he slid the bag with the battery packs back over to me, again without a single word, but I was through. The flight back from Vegas would end up being a lot less eventful as they just let the batteries through without any sort of inspection or issues. I was curious where I'd have to pick up the bike at baggage claim. Going to Vegas, the bike ended up coming out of the normal luggage carousel, and on the way back to Oakland, it got placed in the oversized luggage, so it seems to just depend on the airport. I rented a car in Vegas and a sedan at that, so I was curious if this was going to fit in the trunk of the car or if I was going to have to stick it in awkwardly along the back seat. It ended up fitting almost too perfectly. Like, it seems like they legitimately thought about this when making the bike. It's almost like it was made for sedans. The bag once again was useful for keeping the trunk free of tire marks or dirt. So this trip was actually for CES, and although there was supposed to be parking for the event, it ended up being completely full when I got there. So instead of paying for parking close to the convention center, I decided to take advantage of the free parking on the strip and use the JackRabbit to ride into the event. At this point, it was the first time that I had ridden it, and I was surprised at how well it handled my size and weight. They say it can handle up to a 240-pound rider and up to 6-foot 2-inch rider for this smaller OG model. I was also impressed with how quick it was and how stable it was despite the shorter wheelbase. The foot peg location took a little getting used to, mostly because my brain kept thinking it was going to have pedals. The pegs are big enough to feel comfortable with, and the non-slip rubber coating kept my feet on even over the larger bumps. With no suspension, I figured the ride would be a little rough, and while it's not as comfortable as a full-sized bike, obviously, the wheel size and air-filled tires do a surprisingly good job for any bumps you would normally encounter while riding on the street or on the sidewalk. Surprisingly, I didn't feel overly cramped on it, and I found that its tiny size offered benefits beyond just the portability aspect. First, you can ride in crowded situations or around groups of people without drawing attention to yourself or getting in their way. Riding around the strip on a full-size bike or even a scooter would have been harder to pull off, and more people would have taken issue with me for sure. There's something disarming about this little tiny bike that interests people more than it annoys them. I wasn't able to bring it into CES because they didn't want it making marks on the carpet, which was a little ironic as there were literal cars on the show floor just a few hundred feet away from me. But neither the casinos nor the mall had any issues with it, so it's pretty good. On the section where I had more open space, it was a ton of fun to take off. It has a 300-watt rear hub motor and a top speed of 20 miles an hour, and with how low this bike is, it honestly feels even faster. 20 miles an hour is faster than any electric scooter that would rival this in terms of size and portability. It doesn't have anything in the way of a speedometer, just a simple battery gauge, but that's about all you need for a travel bike like this. The larger XG actually has a nice speedometer, along with a few extra features, but I'll cover the XG a little bit more in a second. With the OG only having a 134 watt-hour battery, I expected the range to be pretty underwhelming, but it surprised me by not losing a single battery bar for almost an hour. In situations where you're running it at max speed for extended periods, the battery drains relatively quickly, but in this situation, riding along the strip, it seemed to just keep going with no signs of draining. The nice part about the batteries being so small is that you can stuff a few in your backpack and you never really have to worry about range. I rode around downtown a lot, including riding a few miles off the strip to go and test out some of Segway's products. You can go check out that video on the ESG channel, by the way. And I swapped out the battery once, mostly because I had it, not because it got close to running out. I did notice a small fall off in acceleration and top speed after the battery was drained more than half, but that is to be expected at this voltage. JackRabbit says the OG gets 10 miles per battery, and in my testing, I found that I would get about 8 miles per battery when running it at the top speeds. For normal city riding, where my average speed was lower, I found myself meeting the range estimates that JackRabbit gives. JackRabbit says that 64% of all trips are less than 5 miles, so a single battery should be plenty to handle your average trip to the store to the gym. If you find yourself traveling more than 8 to 10 miles and you don't want to carry around an extra battery, the larger XG might just be the thing for you. Let's look closer at the XG now and see how it differs from the OG. Okay, so I've got the OG here and the XG here. This is an $800 upgrade up to the XG, so I wanted to show you kind of what you get for that extra money. Other than just being larger, you also get, here you get 2 batteries, so you're doubling your range that you can carry. The nice part is that with the OG here, if you have a backpack, then this doubled up battery range doesn't really matter as much. You can just toss a few extras in your bag. But this is nice if you're not carrying a bag or you don't want to have to worry about swapping out batteries that often. And as I mentioned earlier, you also get this display here on the XG. You don't get any display on the OG. This one's a pretty basic e-bike display, but it's nice to be able to see your speed, kind of see more precisely where your battery's at, how far you've ridden, that kind of stuff. I also prefer the feel of this throttle just a little bit. It's a little bit smoother, but ultimately they are quite similar. You also get a little bit more rise in these handlebars, and I believe they're a touch wider as well. So it's gonna accommodate larger riders a little bit better. As I mentioned, I'm 6 foot tall, but this OG was totally fine. But if you're larger than me, then you might want to go to the XG rather than the OG. You'll also notice this kind of upgraded frame design. You get the extra support to accommodate the longer length of the bike, and then you also get these metal foot pegs, which are a definite upgrade over the old one. Overall, this has like a lot more polished feel to it. Like you're definitely getting your money's worth when you jump to this one, just looking at them. You're also getting wider tires, so you should be able to handle more terrain. You know, this should be a little bit more flexible about where you can ride. It should also be better at absorbing any sort of shocks or bumps that you might encounter. So overall, this is going to be a little bit plusher of a ride for you. You also get double disc brakes on the XG rather than just the single disc brake on the OG. I think that the single disc brake is plenty, but having the added stopping power and added peace of mind is really nice on the XG. You also get an upgraded rear motor. You go from 300 watts to 500 watts. You're going to get the same top speed, but you should see better acceleration and better overall power. I think this one is a little bit quicker, a little bit funner to ride overall. You also notice little touches like the kickstand here. Like this is very similar to a kickstand you might buy on Amazon and add after the fact to a bike, whereas this feels very legit. It's bolted onto the frame, it's adjustable in height, it feels really nice and really polished. And then the OG for a long time was kind of the only one that you could travel with, that you could fly with, because it was the only one they had a bag for. However, JackRabbit has confirmed that they are releasing a carrying case for the XG. So the OG offers JackRabbit's initial design. This is what they originally built. This is the refined version of their prototype, and you can get it for $1,000, which, considering everything you get and the flexibility of it, I think is a great deal. And then if you want to spend that extra $800, you can go to the XG and you can see all the little touches and advancements and refinements that they've made for this one. And I think it's definitely worth the extra $800 if you have the budget for it. So I think most people would be content with the OG, but the XG does offer some compelling upgrades if you're wanting the extreme portability of the JackRabbit, but you're a larger rider or need the larger battery capacity. I'm stoked that I had so much time to test these JackRabbit bikes. I've seen the JackRabbits around at expos and conventions for a few years now, and I always saw them as being a bit gimmicky, but now that I've had the chance to use one in a practical situation, I'm in love. The fact that you could travel with this no matter what mode of transportation you use makes it the ultimate portable electric vehicle. This is what every electric scooter and every folding electric bike wishes it was. I'm a huge fan and a big JackRabbit shill now, so just go get one. There's no reason not to, you'll love it. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Check out the JackRabbit OG and XG at the links below. Thanks for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and remember to always stay frosty.